Hi there, I'm Soy. Before we do the app critique, I would like to grab your attention and introduce SoyDesign Picks, a designer jewelry website, where you could find fabulous collection of fine jewelry for every occasion. No matter if you're looking to wear jewelry that would make you look professional at work or picking party-ready jewelry, SoyDesign Picks has everything you need. Click on the link down below to check out the store and follow us on Instagram to be the first to know about new limited edition designs.
If I was going to change it, I think I would apply just one area to apply the Etsy coupon code or shop code
Mhm.
instead of two distinct areas.
Okay, yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So if we go down, we again have the buy with Apple Pay to quickly purchase, or we can go to checkout, which will be another flow.
Mhm.
Okay, so in this checkout screen, we have the at the very top we have where we are as the user, and right here we have the shipping addresses. Then we would go to the payment, and right before we finalize our purchase, we have the option to review.
Mhm. Okay,
So
cool. Awesome. Yeah, few minutes, you could imagine that you are the CEO of Etsy and you want to make changes to Etsy and also define new roadmap for Etsy in the next 5 years. So what are something you would like to change for Etsy?
yeah, so something I might consider changing is to maybe continue to keep up with the shopping habits of
Mhm.
users. I do notice they use the explore feature that literally
Hi,
I think
everyone.
came out maybe a couple months ago. And I
Mhm.
like that direction that that's headed. I think maybe as a CEO, I would consider implementing like a live shopping feature.
Mhm.
I think that right now, Etsy is competing with like Facebook live shopping, Instagram live shopping, where, users are able to directly shop from um, the Instagram profiles or Facebook pages they follow. So I think maybe giving shop owners the ability to live broadcast items
Mhm.
would kind of create more of a sense of community that I feel Etsy's overall marketing and mission is trying to do to bridge that gap between the sellers and the buyers at a like more
Mhm.
intimate level. So I think maybe exploring the live shopping ecosystem would be a direction I would consider taking it.
Mhm. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Cool. That was really great. Yeah, thank you so much. Before we start to like provide personalized feedback based on how you critique the app, maybe you could first share with me what are your thoughts around this app critique.
This is like a really good learning experience for me. It's, I'm definitely looking for feedback and wanting to improve my verbal communication just because I know that being a product designer or UX designer, communication is so important. And
Yep.
something I've always struggled with was like, I have it in my head, but how to get it out, verbally where it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense and I'm using the right terminology to describe, the things I'm talking about. So, yeah, I really like this app critique.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and I totally understand that sometimes it's really challenging to like exactly describing the thoughts we have in our mind to like another person, although like we really know what we're thinking about, but sometimes when it comes to communication, it's getting super challenging.
Yeah.
It is a very challenging task when we're like communicating our thoughts while also like thinking out loud, critiquing an app. So app critique is not easy at all. It is supposed to be challenging, but you did a really good job. You really nailed it, and especially given that this is your very first app critique, right? You mentioned this is your
Yes.
first
Yes.
app critique. Yeah, that's truly amazing. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
good. Thank
cool.
you.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you liked it. So let's get to the feedback part, and maybe
Okay.
you could go ahead and share your screen again.
Okay. So let's open up Etsy.
Mhm. Okay, awesome. So first of all, I think you did a very good job of having a framework, and then you did a really good job of giving really detailed feedback on like a lot of parts of the app. So for example, when I asked you what's your thoughts around the navigational structure of this app, I think you did a pretty good job of like critiquing what is out there on every tab, like what's out there on shop, what's out there on exploration,
Mhm.
what's out there on favorite, etc. And also, I felt that you did a very good job of doing like an overview of who the end user of Etsy is. So, for example, before you start to do the app critique, I remember you first mentioned about who are the users on Etsy. So basically, there are sellers and buyers. Um,
Mhm.
Really describing about who the end user is of this app is very important. And it's definitely necessary to talk about who the end users are before you start to do the actual app critique. So that's another thing you did really well.
Oh, good. Good to hear.
Yeah. Okay. And then let's also talk about a few other things you could maybe improve a little bit more. Yeah. So before we start to critique any app, it will be helpful to just like communicate to the other person which device you are using to critique this app. Is it like an iOS device, or it's like an Android device, or it's like an iPad or something else? When the other person is like looking at the screen, they might not be like 100% sure which device you are using and what experience you're currently going through. It'll be helpful to just quickly note to the other person that, for example, today I am using iOS to critique Etsy. Something like today I'm using an Android phone to critique Etsy, just to help the other person to set up their expectation a little bit better.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
that's really helpful.
and also, before we start to critique on the app, we could also briefly mention about the business goals of Etsy. So, for example, although I'm not quite sure about like what exactly is the business goals of Etsy, it doesn't really matter. A point that we need to briefly talk about business goals is because later on, when we are critiquing certain part of the app, we want to like justify why they make such design decision. And when we are justifying certain design decision, we might want to like talk about the business goals behind it. So for example, I remember one of the question I asked was, you notice that on the home screen, we have different sections. We have the our picks for you, and also we have the similar to items you viewed. And I was asking like, why do you think Etsy arranging information in this way? And I remember you mentioned that Etsy would prefer to arrange information this way because it's going to help them to like achieve their business goals. So this is actually related to their business goals, or say the business side of reasons. Before you start to do the critique, you could do like a high level overview of what the business goals might be for Etsy. It's going to make it easier for you to justify Etsy's certain design decisions later on in the design critique. Yeah, when you're touching on the business goals, it really doesn't need to be like accurate because none of us know what exactly is the business goals of Etsy, but we can definitely like talk about the business goals based on our understanding of Etsy. And then later on, when we're justifying the design decisions of Etsy, we could also like link the reasons to like certain business goals that Etsy wants to achieve. So that's like another way to like critique the app.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like that's really, really helpful.
Mhm.
Because when you were asking me, information, about this section, like why are the categories this way?
Mhm.
I did notice it was hard for me to kind of bridge that gap on why. I was questioning to
Mhm.
myself, like, why was it created this way? And so, yeah,
Mhm.
I think definitely, explaining my understanding of the business goals would help bridge that connection. Because now when
Mhm.
I'm looking at it, in my mind, I'm kind of answering that like, okay, I think they did this so users can maybe explore more, which maybe they might spend more, which could help, Etsy's bottom line of, more
Mm-hmm.
shopping, more revenue for them.
Mm-hmm. Right, right, exactly.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And do you think when someone's presenting the critique, is there like a certain cadence? Like, would I first kind of go over an overview of what Etsy is, and then would
Mm-hmm.
I jump into the user problem statement, or maybe the possible business goals? Is there an order
Mm-hmm.
that would come first? Would it be business goals?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. I think it could go either way,
Okay.
depending on how you tell the story. So it doesn't matter a lot whether or not you about the user problems first or the business goals first. It's up to you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
really helpful.
Yeah. As long as you touch on those points before you start to do the critique, should be good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. Also, when we are talking about the users, talking about Etsy's target audiences, you might want to, like, before we start to do the critique, we want to clearly explain that there are two types of persona would use Etsy. One is the buyer, one is the seller. So in today's critique, we want to primarily focusing on a shopper's persona. So in the beginning, if you could help me to set up the expectation of which primary persona we want to focus on today, is also going to be super helpful.
Okay, it's really good to know and to
Hmm.
remember and, to definitely bring up.
Yeah, same thing applies to a lot of other apps. So for example, if we're going to critique on Spotify or going to critique on Google Map, we know that for each different types of apps, there are a lot of different users will be using the same app. So in the beginning, like before we start to do the critique, we want to list out some of the potential personas, then communicate to the other person like which persona we want to focus on today to do this critique.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. Thank
Hmm.
you.
No problem. Yeah, and my last piece of feedback is that, first of all, I think you did a really good job of justifying the design rationale behind the design decisions on Etsy.
Okay.
And yeah, and maybe when you talked about the reason behind it, you could quote on, like we mentioned earlier, the business goals, the specific user pain point Etsy is trying to solve for, so that you're telling a very cohesive story. You previously mentioned about Etsy's business goal is blah blah blah, and the user pain point or Etsy is trying to solve is blah blah blah. So Etsy is making such design decisions to address all these issues as well as to achieve these business goals.
Okay. Yeah, that's really, really helpful. I
Okay,
wrote
cool.
notes.
Okay. I think that's it. Overall, you really nailed it, and I'm really impressed that this is how well you did it in your first try of doing an app critique. This is truly amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this.
no
Lately I've been
problem.
trying to, step out of my comfort zone, and I'm like, I know this is going to be a part of the job hunting process, and I really appreciate your professional opinions and the critique of me critiquing. And this is something I definitely am going to practice. Yeah, thank you so much.